Well, hello everybody, and welcome, episode 24, Protection Paladins. If we haven't seen you since the new year, well, Happy New Year back to you as well. My name is Adam K, aka Bay, and I will be your host this evening for Protection Paladins. Oh my goodness. These notes, I will preface the show by saying that Theck, the amazing Theck over at sacredduty.net, helped put together the show notes behind the scenes right here, and I'm usually blown away by what we put together for a show, but his email to me, yeah, there was some homework for these two boys. We have Treckie from Method and Slootbag from Midwinter here this evening for everybody. However, first, fighting off a cold because her body is rejecting the fact that she is away from Honduras.
That's exactly what it is.
Anna Fell's here. Hi, Anna.
Hey, it's good to see everybody. Yes, clearly the solution would be to go back to paradise and just live there forever.
Exactly.
Instead I'm here in the awful cold of North Carolina where it gets down to 45 degrees sometimes. Ugh, it's terrible.
Yeah, but that's why you're sick, though. You know that. That's totally why you're sick.
Yeah, absolutely.
You were looking last week up for plane tickets to get the heck out of here, and now your body's like, you know what? You didn't go through with it.
I was spending all my spare time looking up plane tickets to go back.
Yep. Oh my goodness, yeah.
But I guess if I have to be back here, there's nothing I'd rather be doing than doing the show with everyone. So.
Well, especially an episode that really pertains to you as well.
Mm-hmm. See, you say you're going to host this show, but you have no idea how much I have to say on this topic.
Hey, my only other 90 alt is a Prot Paladin, so I know a little bit. Oh
yeah, your alt. Tell me more about your alt, Bay.
Hey. I'll just take the loon defense on this one, okay? All right? He has an ult of every class that's better than everyone else's. All right, it's fine. It's okay. So everyone joining us as well from across the pond, first off, Treckie, Method. Hi, Treckie.
Good evening, good evening. You're actually saying the right thing this time.
What happened?
Yeah.
What?
I don't know, but good morning was apparently wrong for you, so go with the good evening here.
Hey, you said good morning when we were checking our mics and stuff, and it's like 10 o'clock for you. Weird. It's morning for you.
Yeah,
it's
not
morning
for the rest of my environment.
No, totally not. And then, fighting off the good fight, Slootbag Midwinter. Hello, sir.
What good fight? What are you talking about?
Probably morning for him as well, judging by what he was doing last night.
That's what I mean.
I just woke up 2 hours ago.
Exactly.
Morning for everybody.
Totally prepped and ready to go.
I'm used to looking at the camera again.
Yeah, you do.
There we go.
You're in your new little setting there, though. It's pretty different.
I am.
Used to seeing you, like, sitting back, lounging.
I can still lounge.
You can still? Okay.
If needed. It just looks like I might fall off my chair, that's all.
That's true. Yeah, it's fine. Because I think everyone's used to. Do you still have the hat though? You still have the beanie hat line? Okay.
You know what? I'll bring it out at halftime.
Okay, cool. We'll get it for the after show. Perfect.
All right. Treckie can wear his one of those animals on his head.
He could. Absolutely can.
Well, let's hear a little bit from you guys about what you do on the internet, where our viewers can find you outside of obviously watching you guys on the show right here, and what you've been up to lately. I know you guys are both doing farm content, but you hear a little bit about whether you're doing anything outside of weekly farm, whether you stream, where you can be found. Let's start with you, Slootbag.
Well, you can find me on my Twitch channel, and I'm back now. It's been a long holidays. I've been kind of MIA from streaming, but twitch.tv/Slootbag, the usual social media, Facebook, and all that. And yeah, farm is farm. I don't know. Should I be excited?
Are you taking any alts to farm, or are you just going through?
You know what? In tier 15, I did like hardcore alts all the time, but now it's just kind of, I don't know. I don't know. There's not the fun in alts for me is, you know, building them up, getting good gear on them, and then having them ready for anything. But now it's just like it doesn't matter, right? Because it's expansion time. So, but yeah, I'll probably start doing it again. We'll see.
Cool. And how about you, Treckie? Where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitch as well, on Treckie, of course, on Twitch. I stream pretty much every day. I do a lot of just viewer runs and sub runs and all that kind of stuff, and just try to raid as much as possible because it's just so much fun.
You must be raiding with alts then.
Well, I like running groups with alts, but I don't swap them in. The main raid, I actually exclusively play in my main in the main raid. And I sometimes we have some alt raids, and then the US raids I have as well. So it's like I like to keep them in the group and keep that feel of a progressing through content and getting gear on them. But I'm not a big fan of just jumping in the main raid and just boosting one character up 50 item levels.
Now, where are you on Twitch? Is it twitch.tv/Treckie or is it Method Treckie? Where can we find you?
Yes, just
Treckie. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll make sure to link that for you guys afterwards.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's the one thing I actually asked Trekkie before, is because I know a lot of like the top tier raiders usually, like Flute just said, they do a lot of alt stuff, but Trekkie like raids every day on like multiple characters and like Flex and LFR and like, don't you have another heroic run going right now that's in like Throne of Thunder, which is like an actual progression based run and stuff? Like
that was just
that was a joke. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because you play a lot of this game.
Yeah.
Still.
Raiding is fun. Just playing with people. That's
Okay.
why I play the game.
Okay, fair enough.
We can all agree with that.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you do a lot of stuff with your viewers too. Then.
Yeah.
You have a US account and an EU account, so you raid on both hemispheres, or
Yeah,
yeah.
I haven't raided as much on US as I wanted to, but I do the weekly raid with some people over from Midwinter, so that's always fun.
Oh, good. So that means you have an
I see what's
alliance
going on.
I saw that. That's right.
I
I
see
remember.
what's going on here.
Just for the record, Sloot is not in any of those raids, so
No? Oh.
It's because I'm actually raiding with Method now in the EU.
Oh.
We're doing swapsies.
Oh, okay. That's
I actually do have a EU account. I just haven't activated it. It's about time I do.
interesting. I don't know how much lag do you get playing from EU to US though? Like how much is the difference? Like 250?
120 MS.
Oh, really? That's not too bad. That's totally fine. Because once you get to that 300 MS range, you're like raiding from Australia, and then that's just like, ugh, totally different game at that point.
I think we have a few raiders with more MS to the EU servers than I have to US. So.
What the? Really? That's interesting. Huh.
It's pretty okay.
It's okay? All right.
Yeah.
So, first off, I wanted to open up the show with... We always kind of do, at least in the Mists of Pandaria line of shows so far, we've always opened up with a little bit of history and, like, backstory about the classes. Once we get into Warlords-based shows, it'll be basically what's changed and how to cope with all the changes and how everything's affecting you guys. So, Prot Paladin really wasn't a tank back in vanilla. And it was usually just a utility tree. You went a couple points in to get kings, and you went either Holy or Ret. So, like, when did Protection Paladin actually really become a tanking spec? Like, what happened? Or from vanilla onward? Like, where did it actually become a tanking spec? How about Sloot?
I mean, well, first of all, I didn't tank in vanilla, so let's put it that way.
Sure,
but as far as I know, it was just BC, and that's actually when I started tanking on my Paladin too. I used to main a rogue back in the all of BC. That's when I started raiding, and then after that, I just Paladin around Hyjal time, and ever since then, it's just been Paladin all the way. So I think BC was kind of the conversion from just warriors being the tank kind of thing to other classes entering the stage, druids and paladins.
I mean, that's about right. I think because there was really only one tank back in vanilla. You just had tons of warriors.
It was just warrior.
Because I know when we did like Nax 40, we had 5 or 6 warrior tanks, maybe like 1 or 2 feral druid tanks, just to taunt on 4 horsemen. That was it. So, but what about you, Trekkie? When did you start tanking, and how was your switch like back in the day when Prot actually was viable?
Yeah, I actually have a very similar story to Sloot, to be honest. I started playing in BC, and I played a mage for the majority of BC. And then I rerolled slightly later, like after our guild were done with Black Temple progress, and just felt like tanking was more fun, your more centered role. So that's when I started tanking, and like it was great running through Hyjal, just being more useful, or like it being so easy compared to the warriors with AoE tanking. But you could feel a bit of like you were almost sinking the raid a bit when you were doing on single target fights compared to some of the other tanks. But the balance wasn't perfect, but at least they encouraged actually trying to make them all viable. So
Yeah.
that was good.
Now, you said that you felt like you had a more centered role in the raid when you switched to tanking. Is that kind of why you switched as well, Slootbag?
Yeah, that's what it was, actually. It was, I'll be honest with you, playing a rogue all the time and being on the boss's ass and kind of envisioning, I was like, okay, well, we should move the boss this way, but not being the guy that actually controlled it really kind of, you know what I mean? I just like to be in control, and if I screw up, I screw up. At least I'm the one moving the boss. I'm the one doing those kinds of calls, you know what I mean? So I'm in control of the situation rather than, and I don't know, it kind of helped coming from a melee perspective, you know, because it helps with, like, I understand now that melee get annoyed when the boss isn't positioned properly or whatever, stuff like that. But it's all about the control.
So we learn more about your personality here, I see.
Yeah, there you go.
I take that back.
Whoops! What have I done? No.
But I like what you say there about how it's a big benefit to move from a melee perspective to being a tank. I got the same experience when I went the other way, because I started as a tank and then I went to being a melee DPS, and I started realizing exactly how important it was to have the boss moved in a specific way, moved as little as possible, moved so that there's space behind him for the melee to do their thing, and that kind of thing.
It's just like the little things that you wouldn't think about, you know what I mean? Like people, let's say you had to move the boss across the arena, you know, kind of backpedaling and hopping helps a lot for the melee so they can keep up and keep attacking, whereas some people just straight run down the area, and then the melee are just running after the boss, and there you go, you just lost, you know, 10 seconds of DPS, stuff like that.
Or constantly turning the boss. I know some tanks will, like, they'll constantly, like, reposition and turn the boss one way, and then it's really irritating because then you're suddenly in parry range, and then you want to be out of parry range, and I don't care. I don't get parried. I'm a tank. Yeah, well, but
yeah.
because I'm not a tank, so I don't
expertise.
want my tank to, like, turn the boss around a whole lot.
Yeah, I understand. So sometimes it's inevitable, though. That's where there's a disconnect with the melee and the tank. It's true, man. Sometimes you have to turn.
I know. Sometimes it's inevitable.
Yep, you just have to move it sometimes. I do understand.
But positioning the boss and moving him in as efficient a way as possible, you know, is definitely something that is a really fun skill for a tank to learn. And sometimes you really have to know what everyone else in the raid needs out of you before you can really play that role to the best that it can be.
Very true.
Yeah. Off topic slightly, but they are removing like the frontal dodge from mobs and and bosses and stuff in Warlords, correct? So you can face hit and not have a huge loss.
No. They're removing. I don't remember what it is. They're removing one of them, and they're leaving like a 3% chance to be parried. They're still going to give you a bonus.
Well, they're removing hit and expertise. So
correct. Yeah. So
that's the point behind it.
Yeah.
Right. They're removing hit expertise, but I think there's still a 3% base chance to be parried.
There is exactly.
Okay.
Except for tanks. Tanks. Once your tank roll, you cannot get parried, but melee can still get parried. That's just the way it is.
But face stabbing a boss won't be as detrimental in Warlords as it is now. That's the whole.
I guess not.
I guess not. Hey,
right now it's 7.5 for parry. So
yeah. So
nothing like getting
enough.
parried on your opener. It's always very fun.
I love Stormblast getting parried. It's great. There goes my million damage just in the toilet, just gone. It's fine. So TBC really sounded pretty good for you guys, and then you both said you really started with TBC, both of you tanking. So do you have any like fun backstories or like weird happenstances early on in your tanking career that you want to share with people? I know Sloot kind of let a little bit slide there, but do you have anything else? How about you, Treckie?
One of the main reason I actually rerolled was because I started. I was like I said, I was a mage, and then I started tanking the Illidari Council, and that was like such a centered role instead of just being one of the DPSers. So that made me start rolling my Paladin more DPS or tanking oriented. But you got a lot of you usually got to do the shitty assignments because if you had a warrior tank, they just did the proper stuff.
Yeah,
you were the meat shield.
Yeah, indeed. But you had like Hyjal, like the trash. It was so nice. It's just being the tank on the trash there. And then once you went up to Sunwell, like bosses started hitting you like a truck, and the other tanks were actually sort of equipped for it. But
yeah,
it was just so funny having like what was Righteous Defense, 12-second cooldown or whatever, and then that one got resist, and it's like, well, I'm gonna taunt soon.
Yeah, soon.
I'll taunt at some point.
Missing taunts was the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the set bonus for Warriors back in Vanilla Nax. The hit on taunt, which you couldn't do 4 Horsemen until you all had that. It was awful. So, yeah. What about you? What are you, Sloot?
What do you mean? What am I? I'm a person.
No. What are you? What about you? Funny stories from your early
that
experience
remains to be
tanking.
seen.
Yeah. Oh.
I mean, I don't know. Not many funny stories per se. That's the kind of question where things happen all the time. You just forget about it all.
Sure.
I don't know. It's
So what
it's
you're saying
kinda,
is rating isn't memorable.
I think. Oh, it's so memorable,
Oh.
especially TOGC. Oh.
Ooh, here you go.
Sometimes they can be memorable for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I mean, memorable. Honestly, I think one of the hardest tanking times I had, just in terms of all the jobs you had to do, and especially as that tank as a Prot Pally, was definitely heroic LK. Especially because I was at the time I was also doing all the necrotic dispels at the beginning, setting up all the rotations for devos and all that, and it was just it gets overwhelming. You know what I mean? I mean, not to say it's the hardest thing in the world, because there's definitely some challenging tank fights this past tier, stuff like that. But it was the first time it was really, in my opinion, like a big step up from like to the big boy leagues from like other bosses, other fights in BC and Wrath and stuff like that. It's pretty intense fight as a paladin. That was also the days when paladins had the
passive AD.
The passive AD, so they walked around like they were the big deal.
Yeah,
big boy all the
that was
time.
so good.
It was so overpowered.
Well, now every tank has it right now, so that's fine.
Yeah, that's
You're true. That's
We don't
right.
even have the best AD anymore.
yeah.
That's true. I remember playing with people asked me why I played with game sounds on, and one of the reasons I played with game sounds on was I had stuff that told me when my AD procced, but the biggest thing for me was the sound. There was that sound when AD procced. Yeah, and I knew that was the best way for me to tell that my AD had procced, was that sound that denoted that it had procced for me. So.
Yeah, and
I've always played with game sounds on because of that.
And just so the chat room knows, you're talking about Ardent Defender, which is your passive, built-in onk kind of deal, right? Yeah.
That's the Guardian Spirit
that's
effect.
what it used to be, at least.
Yeah. Okay.
It was just, when it would proc, you'd just be like, you'd feel so powerful, and then it would proc on something like Soul Reaper on Lich King, and it'd be like, heal me, please.
So the chat knows it used to be a passive. It used to be just passive, and it would proc once every 3 minutes. You could proc once.
I think it was
2
minutes.
2 minutes. But now it's an activated ability, so it's now a cooldown that reduces damage in tank, and it can during the activated ability, which is the way it should be.
Pally cheat death is what chat room's calling it, pretty much.
Yes, Pally
exactly.
cheat.
Pretty much. So I want to keep this moving because we have a lot of stuff to talk about, and there is a little bit of controversy that came up. I think it's not controversy. I'm not going to try to spread rumors here. But this brings up our next big topic, and it was brought up by Theck in the notes that at BlizzCon 2013 during the Midwinter vs. Method race, which subtopic, I am still working on like a highlight video for that for YouTube for you guys. I didn't actually see that live, so that's going to be coming out soon, TM, but we'll get to that later. But Slootbag is a Prot Paladin, but you used your warrior for the race. Now, are you hiding? Are you hiding?
What?
He's a class traitor.
But Treckie still used his Prot Paladin now. So what was the thought process behind why you went with your warrior for that?
Honestly, it's very simple, and it's just the way it is. Warriors were just buffed out the butt this tier. They were just too good. For I don't know how many. I played Paladin and then switched Warrior on Black Fuse, and then killed the remaining 3 bosses on Warrior. And I brought my Paladin for every single one of those fights at the start, and then swapped to Warrior 2. And the difference was unfortunately just phenomenal in terms of DPS, raid support, all that kind of stuff, mobility. So I guess the difference was that we didn't have, and Monk obviously being the other strong tank. So we had a Monk, and we didn't have a Warrior, and it was just so strong, proven strong in our raids that this was a race, so we needed the most numbers. I mean, Treckie will probably, he'll know better, but Method already had a warrior, right? Sko is already a warrior.
Yeah.
So they're not going to roll 2 warriors,
So, okay.
Yeah, so like I said, we already had a warrior, so it made little sense to use 2 of them. And I had not, and because we had that doing all the progress, I had actually not even swapped to an alt for any of the bosses, so I honestly hadn't done a single boss fight as my warrior. So I just went with what's familiar, because we were doing the normal strats, we were doing the normal tactics and everything. So it's like, it doesn't make sense. Yeah, you could do a little bit more benefit there. You had the crit banner, you have slightly different like raid cooldowns. But I mean, if you're used to playing it with 1, like, there's no point risking it.
Okay, fair enough. So then, was more of a DPS, mobility, or survivability concern? Was it everything?
It was everything, but honestly, primarily DPS. It was mostly DPS, but not just personal DPS. I mean, the crit ban. You know, like, need I say more, right? So I mean, it's just, yeah. There's a few abilities in the game right now that either shouldn't be in the game or they need to be dispersed to more classes. Crit banner, stuff like summoning stone for warlocks. You know, it just doesn't. You know, they wanted to homogenize classes a bit, but there's still these like crazy outliers where having like a crit banner in the raid, like on Black Fuse, we would crush on progression. We would crush benchmarks when my warrior was in there just because of crit banner, like at the start with heroism.
Yeah,
it's just kind of, you know, I don't know. It's a bit annoying, but you got to do what you got to do in progression. You know, when you're racing, I can't be stubborn when I'm racing and take what is a weaker tank class, at least for our raid, just to be like, well, I love my paladin. I'm on paladin. I'm not going to help the raid. You know, so.
No, absolutely. And we'll get into all of like the utility and stuff and viability that you bring as a prop paladin later, but that was an interesting topic that brought up in the notes that Theck wanted to talk about that I thought was a good idea to address. Now,
and I have a follow-up question though
for that. Spitting at his monitor. Sorry.
Yeah.
I have a follow-up question for that though. Is there any tier that you can remember in recent memory where you had to do the same thing? Because I know you did take your warrior to a lot of the end progression in this tier. Has that happened before for you in any of the last expansions?
This was the first time ever. Paladins traditionally have been just solid, just like the best, and they were still good tanks this tier. Don't get me wrong; it's not like they sucked. It's just they overdid it with warriors, and then monks are monks, right? Monks have always been monks since tier 15 and on, basically. Yeah. So I've not been in that position until now. But it was just reading. Honestly, what happened is I enjoyed playing my warrior for fun, and then I read the patch notes for the proposed changes for tier 16, and I was like, oh my god. I was like, I don't think they realize what they're doing to warriors, because I'd played it, and I was like, oh cool, yeah, let me go shield slam for like 2 million at like tier 15 gear. This is awesome. And so like it's just like, what are they thinking, you know? So it's just their buff to crit made it pull significantly ahead of like the already established benefit to haste. And the problem is that paladins were already so strong that also they got nerfed a bit in some senses. Yeah. You know?
Yep.
Selfless healer, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess we need one tier where we're not overpowered for everything, but
just wait till the next expansion. We'll be good.
Yeah,
we'll be back on top again.
I mean, it's funny because, like you said, paladins have been in a really good position in lots and lots of previous tiers. Paladin is not really a tank class that you really switch off of.
Yeah, no, it's true.
But it's interesting to hear then why you chose to switch off of it for this.
I mean, I'll still always be Prot Paladin #1. Like that's still my main. And now that we're heavy into farm, I'm on my Prot Pally for every boss. It's just when it's like I said, when you do what you got to do, kind of thing. That's all.
Yep. Treckie, have you ever switched off your paladin for a progression race?
No, absolutely. No, I'm very stubborn in it, and we usually build our tactics around one thing, and then like going and swapping that out is like, well, that's just gonna mess up so much. But I don't know. We managed to do fine, and like you find your quirks. You find like I said, we had a warrior tank, so if there's something a warrior tank is amazing for, he takes that job on that fight, and I do the other one. So it doesn't always make sense for me to go that class. But usually it's like we have never really had that much. We have a few people swapping characters and stuff, but it's not really that much class stacking or whatever that goes on.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, cool. Interesting to know.
And I feel most comfortable tanking with my main, so just swapping to an alt. It's like, yeah, okay, you might be better in some parts of the fight, but if you're not comfortable doing it, like when it's a new boss, which you don't always like know everything about, and timers and stuff, it's like you can, at the same time, just not be much of a benefit in total either.
That makes sense. So then, in the old like how Prot Paladins stack up against other tanks now this tier, where would you rate them? Like if you had to rate the 5 at the end of tier 16, we've all finished it now. Where do you guys feel like the 5 tank classes fall in order? If you had to put them into like overall, like what would you choose before something else, kind of deal?
Anything before DK.
Hey, man, and it's such a bummer. Our main tank is a DK, and I just remember tears and tears where he was so overpowered, just ridiculously overpowered. And he's stuck with it because he loves DK, but that's definitely the feeling I get. Anything but DK.
They got the shaft.
I mean, we got everything done. Like, obviously, all of the tanks got everything done. So it really only mattered up at the very top which tank class was most perfect. So it's not like DKs can't do stuff. But, man, it's such a bummer because he spent so long just being so good with the active negation for the content that we were hitting.
It's so weird, too. I think it's an interesting thing because DKs were so prevalent and strong at the end of like Cataclysm, because they were the only ones with active mitigation. They would never die. They had so much self-healing and sustain. So they used that active model on the other tanks to pepper it around to them to make them have the same sort of feel. And now the antithesis of where that came from is now the weakest tanking class. So it's going to be interesting how that comes in 6.0, because now all tanks are going to be at 70% of a DPS. Now they're not going to be like carrying your damage.
Wow.
So
that's what a hint of salt. I mean, that's what they aim for. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they
we'll
aim
see.
for us to have competitive DPS this expansion. Look what happened with Vengeance. So.
yes, true. That's true.
Oh,
But even that's after the Vengeance nerf too. It's wild.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's going to be weird how that all happens. But we'll have to see. We will have to see. So I guess that really answers all of that. I just wanted to bring that up and quell all the rumors that might have been floating around. So now to move us along into a little more nitty-gritty here. Mists of Pandaria changes a lot of stuff. We had the new talents, the new glyphs, all the new rebalancing, and everything happens with the new expansion. So, Paladins, how was Prot changed? Say, for example, we'll start out with Holy Power. Had 3 before, now you got 5. So it increases your options, your flow, your storing. So how did a Holy Power change really affect your tanking as a Prot Paladin, Treckie?
They did the same about all the tanks. They gave you, so basically they gave you a resource which you can like use for active mitigation, and then they give you more like a bank of resources that is bigger than the amount of resources you need to use. So basically you can bank up more resources than you need to use, so you can like chain them a few times.
Yeah.
So basically I have 5, so you can use 3 Holy Power, you generate 1, and then use it right away, instead of having to use it and then instantly have to try to regenerate all 3 before you can use it again. So it's just basically so that you can smooth out damage better, and you can just basically bank up for like when you know it's going to be hard hits in a few seconds, instead of using it like ASAP, because that might not always be the best.
Sure. Now, and to draw a parallel, because I've actually, I'm leveling up my only other character ever now. I'm doing Brewmaster. So Chi and Holy Power is like almost the same thing, correct?
Yeah, I mean, they have double resource, but I mean, technically,
True.
Prot Paladins do too, but mana's like not actually a thing.
Mana's a fake resource.
Yeah,
it's not actually a resource.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's the same thing technically. You know.
So, and then what do you think about the whole the change with Holy Power, and then moving on into like how active mitigation felt for Prot Paladin?
I mean, well, I touched on this in the episode of Discuss. I'm not gonna go crazy on it, but active mitigation I think was just like the best change ever, because it's just their skill now. You know what I mean? You have to time stuff. Ooh. So
Yeah.
So it's great, and the 5 Holy Power, it's just like Trekkie said, it's all about banking. So you know, if you're off tanking, you know, the smart thing to do is to pool 5 before you're about to taunt, and then bam bam double SOTR, right? It just builds straight back to back kind of thing. It's just about, it gives you the option to skillfully pool your resources and use them as necessary, rather than, you know, just SOTR away nonstop.
Sure.
But active mitigation, I mean, I love it. I think it's great. I think they went a bit overboard with the monk. There's nothing active about it there, but
there's no active about it at all.
Yeah. But I think it's great. Obviously, it needs a bit of fine tuning. Monk is, you know, like I said, nothing active about it. DK is kind of suffering, but I think all these changes will go in, obviously, or hopefully for WOD.
Yeah.
I remember being so depressed. Well, not really depressed, because I love Ret, but I had just switched to Ret, and then I saw all of the active mitigation changes in store for Paladins and played them on the beta. And I remember thinking, gosh, I switched out of Prot right when Prot got really awesome. Dang. So I'm glad that I got to. Yeah, I know. I should come back.
You already have the gear for it.
I do. My gear's all the same. Well, I tank a little bit. I tank a little bit here and there, and I'm pretty satisfied being main spec DPS. But no question, Paladins got a great overhaul for MoP. I think that Prot Paladins got a ton more fun when the expansion came out.
Yeah. Can I just totally random side note? What is it with method tanks and like movie star hair? Look at Trekkie's hair, man.
I like it.
Sound like Anna's talking, and I just can't stop looking at it.
Oh, I see how it is. You're staring at Treckie.
I really didn't want to bring up the whole like weird Twitter drama you started last week. You're almost doing it yourself right now, Sloot. Come on now.
Come
on now.
Please continue with the show.
Oh my goodness. Oh, may I? Yeah, okay.
Please.
So you're all talking about how well the active mitigation model came over for you guys. So now we're moving on to, let's talk about Vengeance for a little bit. And And this is without the nerf. The nerf really hasn't to have too much effect. Like it nerfed how much damage you guys did in some regards. So that's fine. But then Prot Paladin, as from I remember, like tier 14 when you got gear, and then especially tier 15, you guys did crazy damage. I know we had to have our main tank Sam have to like play with vengeance tricks on Heroic Lei Shen to help us carry us to bench points. But now they're kind of falling off in damage. I don't know, is that because of warrior buffs or just because of how you guys are scaling with the content? You start out really strong early and you kind of fall off later. So what's your experience with that?
Scaling. I
know, right? Sloot, what do you think?
Well, aside from the nerfs, like all the small things add up. You know, they nerfed the alabaster shield glyph, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it was just, I mean, it was vengeance, and it was, you know, our haste model was already implemented, right? So there was no, you know, warriors didn't have crit, and then they had crit all of a sudden. So that's why they boosted up so much. It was a brand new model. But I think the reason we fell behind, I mean, it's just, I don't know what to say. There's big reasons, there's annoying small reasons, which I'm sure Theck knows exactly what I'm talking about. You know, consecrate scaling, holy wrath, splitting damage, all that kind of stuff that just kind of makes you drop off a bit. And there was a lot of fights, for instance, this tier where spike damage was the big deal, you know, and you want that spike damage when you have the high vengeance or to kill that siege crafter, add stuff like that. Haste is it's a maintained stat. So if you're sitting there beating on a boss for 10 minutes, you'll do great as a Prot Paladin. But when you're constantly swapping you need a spike, you get that huge spike vengeance. As a warrior, probably the hardest hitting tank ability in the game. Like bam, shield block, shield slam, you know, there you go. I don't know how many millions of damage from that. But Paladins need sustained damage. And there were a lot of fights in tier 15 where, you know, that was the case because of Bubble and Bot being OP, right? One tank Darumu, one tank this, one tank that, one tank Khan.
Yep.
So you just sit there with crazy amounts of vengeance consistently, though. You don't get spike vengeance, just slowly build vengeance. And haste is great for that, but not a reality this tier.
Yeah, not a reality this tier. So that's what it comes. So it almost comes down to like encounter design to some degree as well, right? Would you say
well,
as well?
It always does.
Yeah. But
yeah. But classes also scale slightly differently at more item levels. We didn't really we got 20 more item levels. Didn't really see much difference because we had a lot of haste. Yeah, we got a bit more haste, so increased our efficiency by X%. But it wasn't any revolutionary. And to be honest, I think the biggest change is, at least that you notice, is when you're AoE tanking and not every ad gives you its full vengeance. And when you're so far behind in vengeance, there's just other tank classes with abilities that are just so much more powerful in terms of grabbing those ads than paladins have. Because consecrate is, again, just like haste, it's maintenance, so it's like upkeep, but it's no burst threat or anything. So other tank classes just excel more in that kind of burst than we do.
Yeah, no, there really is nothing on a Prot Paladin. I'm thinking about like my skills, because again I'm playing a Brewmaster a lot now. Like you keg smash, everything's on you. You shockwave shield slam, everything's on you.
So
but
keg smash.
on Prot Paladin, you concentrate, you can throw your shield, and then you hope.
There are 3 targets, and then Holy Wrath is well, if there's many targets, it's no threat anyway.
So. There's just no snap threat as a Prot Pally these days.
The only
you can't
thing...
sit in a consecrate and be like, hey, Mr. Brewmaster, please don't keg smash for 2 minutes while I build threat on these 8 ads.
But the only thing I can think of that would give you snap threat is Light's Hammer, which is your talent, but it's a minute-long cooldown, right?
Still not much.
Well, no, and it still
threat,
ramps the.
It's not.
It's
still.
And the damage ramps up until the end, so not really.
It's like powerful. Consecrate. I think Holy Prism is much better if it is 5 targets.
Yeah,
that's some snap threat. But if you use it before you have Vengeance, it's doing no damage anyway. And
we're paying for all those years when you could just drop a Consecrate and everything would be glued to you.
Yeah, but people still think that's the case.
I know, everybody still
Consecrate
thinks
in tier
that's how it
14.
works, and that's not how it works.
Why would they do that? Oh.
Yeah. Nope. I think that's look here real quick on the notes. Isn't Consecrate is your second to last priority list, overall. So in a grand scheme of your whole rotation, even when you're coming to working about AoE threat, it's just such a low priority. It just doesn't do any damage and doesn't have any real big.
Well, it doesn't generate holy power.
Yeah, no. It doesn't.
That's the. I mean, that has more to do with the priority than damage output.
Yeah. Well, that's also true. But in the overall, how much does it scale at all? Really? What do you gain?
the cooldown scales, but you can't drop a consecrate on top of a consecrate. Once you drop the new consecrate, the old one's gone. So you can't overlap them. So it's a damage loss right there. Just doesn't make sense why that's the case, but
so that's a flaw, you would say, most likely.
I guess it's a flaw. I remember Theck talked about, like, there was certain stuff that, when they came out with the whole haste model for paladins at the beginning of the expansion, it was and crazy, and I was all over that. But there were certain things that just didn't scale with haste at the start. Like, remember, our Shield of the Righteous didn't scale. Our tier 90 talents didn't scale. They do now. Just annoying stuff like that. That you're used to seeing quick GCD, and then all of a sudden you hit one ability, and it's like. There's just like a whole gap in your rotation. It's just they just didn't pick up on it. I don't know.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, just going on, I guess, on the vengeance topic, since they've talked about changing it severely for warlords, what do you guys think? That it's not going to be increasing outgoing attack power anymore?
I think it's nice.
Well,
it's gonna be
it's long overdue, in my opinion.
But right now you're breaking encounters by vengeance whoring, and especially like monks have such a good way to do that. So I just like the fact that they're gonna I'm all for doing much damage, but vengeance has such a big impact, and especially in 10-man guilds, it's like you need to force all the vengeance into one tank so he can do all the burst.
But the 10-man 25 is a thing of the past.
Yeah,
that's true.
But it's like I don't know, like, because it screws with mechanics as well. If you're beating DPS races, and then it's like something is reliant on a tank getting enough vengeance from some debuff, whatever, and it's like that's just gonna, like, if that doesn't happen, then you shit out of luck and just have to try again. So it's more I don't know, reliability or whatever in the output from everyone in the raid.
So now, to go over that real quick, do we know what they're doing with Vengeance and Warlords? What actually is going to be changing with it?
Not specifically.
I don't think we know specifics. I think we're pretty well certain that tanks are going to go to a fixed percentage of DPS. Is it 70%, I think?
They're aiming for 70, 75, something like that.
Yeah, 70-75% of a DPS's output, but Vengeance is going to purely affect mitigation, and it's not going to affect
Defense
damage
based.
output.
That's right.
And they did say that pretty. I mean, everything is up to be changed. I mean, I'm not going to say that they've said it and they've promised it, but they were pretty. They were pretty adamant about that change. That's where they're going to go with Vengeance.
Makes sense, though. I don't know. I mean, don't get me wrong. I had a lot of fun. Vengeance.
Yeah.
Right? It's fun.
I mean, it could be a lot of.
I did it, but I drew my line. What was stupid was like the
sitting
stuff. Oh.
Yeah, fuck that shit.
I mean, the thing is, like, you have to do it because it's like when you get double vengeance, like, oh my god. But it was so dumb. But yeah.
Geez, it's too bad nobody predicted that back when they were first going to implement that change. That tanks would be taking extra damage, gearing weirdly, standing and stuff, and doing basically untank-like things in order to get lots of attack power and break fights, basically.
I'm all for. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, Vengeance was fun, but it was over the top. I'm all for going back to, well, I mean, being a tank, right? The job as a tank is to take as little damage as possible, not stun and stuff for extra output.
Yeah.
However, I don't ever really want to go back to like a DS scenario where you are just useless and you just sit there taking hits. You know what I mean? Like Dragon Soul was just so boring. You didn't contribute to anything other than making sure you don't die, which is fun, but you need a bit more than that. That extra bit of play to help the raid with some DPS, to help the raid with some cooldowns, whatever, you know?
So they really have to bake in a lot of your damage into your ability, since you're not going to scale off of taking damage. Taking damage will make you mitigate more damage. So now, do we have any thoughts in that same regard that you're going to like be able to gimmick certain huge boss hitting abilities? Like right now, like a monk tank, or almost any tank right now, can solo tank the Malkarok in Rage, which is not supposed to be solo tanked. Do you foresee problems going into Warlords where you can put a ton of Vengeance on one tank to have him soak giant raid-ish abilities that should be soaked by multiple people, but one person can soak them? Or do you think they'll have foresight, knowing that they had the Vengeance problems now, to not have that happen?
Well, that's not really what the Vengeance problems are right now. I mean, so
that would absolutely not change anything, to be honest.
It wouldn't change anything.
Okay.
No, but then again, first of all, the monk tank doing it, their shit doesn't even care about vengeance. It doesn't even matter how much damage you're taking, because it just purifies itself. Like I said, like that, because their idea is to keep vengeance as it is now for active mitigation, and then just not have it increase damage, and then it would sort of work the same way with the shield barrier and like heals from paladins and stuff, like they would still be maybe too big if you take enough damage. So
sure, okay. I just wanted to bring it up because it's like a devil's advocate point there, because people will be like, well, why don't they do this now with your vengeance? So
well,
okay.
but that's how it works right now, though, and you don't see people doing that right now because that's just that. I mean, it's not realistic. What the deal with putting lots of vengeance on one tank is for damage output, not necessarily for crazy mitigation.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
that's all it is.
Yep, that's fine. Oh boy! All right.
Sorry, I guess you directed that at the guys.
No, it's hey.
You know what, Anna? I'm just gonna leave. You gotta just talk amongst yourselves.
I did tell you that I had a vested interest in this topic. So.
Yeah, you absolutely do. And then when we get to a
It's
retribution,
particularly heated then.
we'll get to a Ret Pally episode eventually too, and you won't even the guest won't even talk. It'll just be you talking for an hour and a half.
The Ret Pally episode can just be you and me, Bay.
Yeah, just okay. I'll just interview Anna. That's fine. It's less work. Okay.
Moving right along.
Yeah. Oh, you want to do it? Okay, I was going to say, bring up raid utility now. And as I was writing these notes, I realized that paladins are a little handsy. And, I mean, I understand, like, from a lore point of view that they changed them from blessings to hands because they wanted to separate the two. But yeah, you guys lay your hands on people quite a lot. I don't know if that should be...
Everyone still calls it bop. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but we all still call it bop, even though it's hand of protection.
There's no hopping, just bopping.
Yeah, don't hop on. Yeah,
it's
exactly.
not like a Dr. Seuss rhyme right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there's a huge list of stuff, and we talked about it a little bit earlier. Sloot will take us with this one. There was a couple game-breaking things that have been... I think all of them are out of the game now. You can't really use Bop and Bubble to... You still can? Where at?
Yeah, if you're a tanked cloak debuff with Bop and Bubble.
Yeah.
So you can just eat it again.
Oh, okay.
So you could double tank cloak. Kind of not supposed to happen.
Yep. Every 1 minute instead of 2 now. So
it's just a paladin thing, though. Paladins have always been able to bop things. We had we had an issue with Hand of Purity for a while, where you could purity the heck out of everything.
To be fair, there's a little. It's a fine line, right? I mean, you can't make it so OP like it was in tier 15, but you can't make it not work on anything ever, because then what the hell is the point of the ability? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just kind of loses its value. It's like, well, if you're supposed to bubble and be able to immune damage and all that, and then it doesn't work on anything anymore, then the hell's the point? I mean, for instance, as far as I don't know if they fixed this. I don't think they did, but the dot on Juggernaut that he puts on you, if you bubble, it still ticks through your bubble when you're trying to like hop on mines.
Well, there's a couple of things in the game right now, you can't immunity through, like the aim on heroic paragons. You can't ice block that to solo tank it; it'll just kill you, right? Like you can damage mid it, but you can't immunity it. But they also there's a couple things. Is there anything else that you can really?
Well, I actually think there was a major change to a lot of the way paladin abilities interacted with things. Was there not a flag? There was a flag on certain abilities that said ignores immunities, and that entire flag didn't work for a long time, and they fixed.
Well, there's a lot of abilities where you can immunity or bubble, and you still get the debuff, but you don't take the damage. So you immune the damage, but not the not the actual debuff. So that's the thing, and I think they forgot to remove make a bubble on not work on 2 of the debuffs on 2 out of 3 debuffs on Theck. Well, yeah.
Okay.
Plus, I think it hasn't been that powerful like last year at least. So.
Okay.
Except for the cloak.
Yeah, I think it strikes a good balance where you can use it to make certain things easier because you have a paladin, but you can't really use it to ignore entire abilities throughout the fight. Except for that one that you brought up. But in general, they've struck a fairly good balance between making it a useful ability and making it overpowered. So.
Okay.
Yeah, they can't make it useless in PvE, so
yeah.
Because then you're losing some big part of the class. So.
Well, there's kind of a moral dilemma. It's like when you do find these sneaky things, do you tell Blizzard?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found a lot of them on the PTR. Some of them I didn't really say anything about until I did them on live.
At least they never fixed a tank cloak, so I'm happy with that.
Or I spellcaster cloak for ages, but
you did, yeah. Chad just brought that up about the in cloak. Yep. So you guys have Hand of Sacrifice, which is a cooldown you put on someone that reduces dot damage.
It's an external cooldown. No, Hand of Sac is a 20% external cooldown. You can put it on someone else.
Yes, that's what I mean.
Cooldown the other tank.
Reduces the damage taken from periodic effects only, I thought, though, right? Not just straight damage?
No, Hand of Sacrifice is... You're thinking of Hand of Purity. Hand of
Purity, yes.
Hand of Sacrifice is the basic external cooldown. Hand of Purity is a talented cooldown that reduces dot effects for
Okay,
6
yep.
seconds.
And then Hand of Salvation, still sort of useful to
Yeah.
some degree. A little bit. Usually we use it on like a
Only
pull.
just for openers.
Openers,
Yeah, just on
yeah.
the pull or
Put it on
adds
the lock
stuff
on
like
Yeah.
a Paragons.
Yep.
or on the monk tank in AoE situations.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Hand of Freedom,
Seen that with Bob.
which there's interesting things with movement removing abilities because like it works like Roar, but it doesn't work like
Yeah.
Roar. It's one person. So it makes you immune to them and freeze them, but it doesn't actually remove the debuff. So like it doesn't work on Malkorok, for example. Right? Because it doesn't actually make you move any faster.
I
guess
actually
that's
can't think of many encounters this
Yeah,
tier
the-
where freedom was like really
freedom?
good, unless you got slowed by an MC or something.
Yeah.
The only one is Malkorok when you're tanking the ads. That's
Yeah.
like, the only place
So-
I ever used it, I think, in this tier at all.
I freed him myself on Siege, not Siegecrafter. On Garrosh, those ads hamstring you. I freed him myself, but I rarely ever freed
Yeah.
him anyone
Oh,
else.
yeah,
And there's
yeah.
a slow on Spoils too.
But I don't know. You don't move as a tank in phase 1.
Okay.
I could see why you
Oh, yeah.
need it,
I
but I
mean-
Yeah.
guess so. I don't know.
I never freed him anyone
our,
else. I just freed him
Our
myself.
strat at least, like just.
Oh, okay. Fair. Okay. Yep.
Sit still.
Theck put cleanse in here as being a sort of a underestimated or not as rare, not as used often. Like obviously there's a holy paladin you cleanse all the time, but do you find you guys self like cleansing anything as a prop paladin? Like do you?
I self cleanse every time I
Self-cleanse?
come out of an MC on Garrosh, but again,
Okay,
tanks
yeah.
don't get MC'd. So
Yep. But other than
Yeah.
that, do you guys ever like care
I don't
about
have-
cleansing other people?
I
Don't think I have it on my bars.
you never cleansed on what was that on a
Horadon you did, yeah.
On Horadon, yeah. I cleanse
Okay.
people all the
I
time.
just got used to it after Lich King. It's right there, my number 5 button.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mouse over
Yeah, mine-
cleanse on the raid every time.
okay, fair enough. That's good.
But it does take up a precious GCD that could be used for amazing
precious
vengeance
GCD.
scoring.
It does. Yes.
For Vengeance-tory, not for tanking,
I mean, for
but for
It is
Vengeance-tory.
a precious GCD. It makes me very
Yeah.
happy.
Okay, fair enough. Now, so the big one that I wanted to bring up here is Devo Aura, which we still call it AM, right? Aura
Yep.
Mastery. So, but Devo Aura is pretty much the cooldown for this tier. Would you think of anything else that is more beneficial? Like on certain encounters, this ability is be too powerful?
no
No?
No.
banner.
Still-
Your banner is even more overpowered.
You think?
Banner rallying, yeah. Chain
Banner
together.
rally?
Banner
chain
rallying
banner?
chained together. And keep in mind, banner is way longer than Devo, and it's all damage. It's 15%, but it's all damage, not just magic.
True. But the interruption resistance though?
Yeah, good for like
Oh.
like Thock. That's about it.
Yeah.
That's like the only time it was relevant. Yeah, it was good for that.
And Garrosh, heroic Garrosh. When the Iron Star
Yeah,
hits.
it's
but-
better than Rallying Cry and Garrosh, for example, but you also can have all the healers, all the holy paladins, and everyone else can have it as well. So it's, I think really the only problem is that there are 3 tank classes that don't have these kind of cooldowns. Aura Mastery is too strong because it is a cooldown overall, but Rallying Cry and Demo Banner is also way too strong compared to the other tanks. So that's what's gonna set you back. Not if you have an Aura Master, if you have these cooldowns or not. That's what's gonna
Well,
make the big.
monks have like the old school DSAC or whatever it was from like TOGC days, where they redirect all damage to them. It just obviously doesn't work very well right now with all the crazy amounts of damage.
And
Going
it's
on.
short range. But
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. That's true.
And thank you
Yep.
so much for calling it Aura Mastery because that is the correct name. we're gonna forget about this Devo Aura thing because
Yeah.
it just gives armor.
It doesn't. Devo Aura is armor. Blizzard. It gave armor for like 8 years in your RTS. What is this? It's armor aura.
I miss auras.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know.
Was that a
Such
thing? Do you guys miss auras? The 3 of you as paladin mains? Do you miss aura swapping?
I think
Do you
it was
miss
fun.
the utility of it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
was
but
fun.
like, what do we have now? Seals that we don't change.
That we had before
Yeah.
anyway.
That
Yeah.
you don't change.
So
Yeah, I wonder. I always thought that was like a really big gutting of a class that you lose all your you're a paladin. You've had auras since like Warcraft 2. So you lost all of that. Now you're 1 aura as a cooldown. That doesn't even do what it's supposed to do based on the whole game prior. So
I'm
would you
not
like-
sure if I can put my finger on what exactly made auras exciting before they took them away.
Hey, Mount Aura was awesome. Okay, that was fun.
Crusader.
Crusader
Crusader
Aura.
aura.
Crusader Aura.
Yeah,
That was
I
so
don't
good
know.
in raids.
I just felt that made you feel like a paladin. Would you guys want those to come back in Warlords?
Too many buttons to use, I think.
Too many buttons.
Too many buttons?
Trekkie's right. They were fun, but I mean, the only reason they're gone is because of their whole dumbed down everything, mentality now. Make everything easier. Don't want to bloat the action bar, which is okay.
I mean, they're
Okay.
cool and flavorful, but you have to question, like, do they really add something that's worth giving you, like, 4 more buttons? And
Yeah, no,
I
that's
don't
true,
think
that's
so.
true.
Okay, fair enough. I was just playing, just to see what you guys thought of those. So then, off of that, you guys have a lot of off healing and like smart healing you are built in with, and that kind of lends itself to being a paladin. And it used to be a whole lot stronger, tier 15, and then they kind of nerfed that. They nerfed that to glyph, which we'll get into more later. But how much effectiveness do you guys actually see in raids of your caliber that your healing actually matters? Like, do you more care about it for yourself only, or have you ever actually like saved someone with like a Eternal Flame 3-stack or something like that? Do you ever notice? Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Anna.
Anna. Oh! Who's going to be next?
It's attacking us. She's still there. It just froze. Weird.
Yeah, you're like lagged out.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you though, Trekkie? What do you think? Do you ever see your healing do anything besides yourself?
Not really this tier much. The biggest benefit is like you really just most of the healing is on yourself. I think the biggest contributor is the Holy Prism, which is a burst healing on 5 people, which in my opinion is pretty huge. For one, if you have a lot of engines, that's basically topping 5 people. Good for like when there's bursting coming or burst just happened, then you will just want to get control over the situation.
Okay.
Otherwise, yeah, the other big thing is obviously like you can target or you can mouse over Word of Glory or Eternal Flame someone else, which can basically save people because you just use 1 or 2 holy power and it's like they're topped with enough vengeance. So that's those 2, but they're very active, so it's not passive very much anymore like it was before.
Yeah. Okay. So do you think they did that? Like, consciously they wanted to make you care more about it? Because when you had the battle healer glyph and you just left on the seal, you just kind of healed the crap out of everybody with, like, not even thinking about it. And that was
but that was like little passive healing. That wasn't, like, saving someone's life.
It wasn't game-breaking, but
it was a bit over the top, though.
Too much for free?
It was free.
Well,
free.
Yeah.
And then combine that with all the vengeance whoring that we talked about, and there you go.
that you talked about.
I remember.
I do not recollect such discussion.
Okay.
Raw and first and damage and healing at the same time, so that's okay.
Yeah, what the heck, man. So we already kind of went over like how fun Prot Paladins are. I think all of this and the way we've reveled in all the different things. The one thing I wanted to hit here before the little break, if you could have one thing removed from your class in Warlords, what would it be? We're not talking about fix. We've kind of had like what we wanted fixed earlier, but if you could remove one thing from you that you do not like,
from
what would
the
it
class
be?
Or from tanking?
From Prot Paladin. So
I was going to say Keg Smash.
Yeah.
Just remove.
Page there.
That's not him. Okay.
See, I feel like it's kind of how healers talk about discard Spirit Shell. You know, like
remove Spirit Shell.
remove Spirit Shell. All the healers say, and then tanks would say remove Keg Smash.
Yeah. Okay. I guess.
But anyway, talking about paladins.
Well, no, but that sort of makes sense. But yeah, to keep it back on this, because what do you guys think? To have something removed that you just don't, something you don't use, that has no utility, that really doesn't serve a purpose anymore. What do you guys think could be removed from Prot Paladin?
I don't know. I don't know specifically if there's anything I just flat out want gone, but there's some stuff that just should have been changed a long time ago. Things like Holy Wrath not splitting on targets.
Oh, okay.
Especially because there's so many ad fights this tier. It almost becomes like a useless ability to hit sometimes. So I guess maybe that's one of my number one gripes. I don't really have. I like the rotation of Prot Paladins. I think it feels great. There's never usually gaps in rotation or anything like that. But it's just, I don't know. Holy Wrath. It's always bugged me. Every other tank has some kind of snap threat, except Paladins.
Okay. What about you, Trekkie?
No, I'm pretty much on the same page there. I don't really care about getting anything removed, really. Cause I like the utility. I like all the kind of stuff we have. It's just that some pieces could definitely be better off, be more useful, and stuff like that. Especially compared to the other tanks. I think honestly, like the real like threat game gripes I have is when you're tanking with another tank. it's not really much about when you're trying to keep a threat off of DPSers, because that's usually fine. There's a few pulls that are annoying, but it's like
Yeah.
Otherwise it's like when you pulled with a lot of trash and then someone comes in and Dragon Roar or Keg Smash, and it's like, okay, well, I'm useless. So that's just really the thing, I guess.
Yeah, I think I'll almost like, I'll let Anna answer this too, but thinking about it right now, I always kind of, when I play my Prot Paladin, I just don't hit Holy Wrath. I feel like it's just kind of meh.
It's only for single target.
Yeah, it's just, bleh. But it just doesn't feel like a button that doesn't do anything.
There's too many glyphs focused around something that's so lackluster. You know,
It's
you got
true, yeah.
extra stun glyph, you got the extra damage glyph, you got the minor glyph to make it hit only one target. It's just like, what the hell, man? I don't care. Just take out all those glyphs and just make it better ability.
Yeah. Well, you know what the answer to my question. You know what my answer to that question is, Bay.
Oh god, what is it? What is it, Anna?
Well, take a guess.
Remove all the melee from mythic rating. Oh no, wait, wrong answer.
No. I would say you got to remove AM from the tanks, but that's because I feel pretty strongly about raid cooldowns being removed from everyone.
That is
not
true.
A healer in general.
Yep.
But that would be in a world where they removed raid cooldowns from lots of classes, we would have to have AM removed. Although, to be honest, I think raid cooldowns would work fine if tanks and healers had them. So maybe not with regard to Prot, but in general, I think raid cooldowns.
I think DPSers are the real problem.
Yeah, raid cooldowns on DPSers are probably the major problem. So actually, AM might be just fine, kept by Prot Paladin.
Yeah, that must be an interesting point of contention for Blizzard to find out where raid cooldowns should be. Should they be on everyone? Should they be on healers and tanks only? Should tanks and healers like share different ones? Should DPS not have them? At
the max, they should be on tanks and healers. They should not. They should not be on DPS at all. I think that's pretty.
I don't know if we want to go back to the DS days where like 4-piece was mandatory for every tank. So you could have a raid cooldown.
No, it should just be passive for all the tanks.
Yeah.
All the tanks have some kind of something that's kind of useful.
Exactly.
They just wanted to put too much of a different flair on them, and they gave like Druid's got the roar thingy, which is sort of a raid cooldown, I guess. But it's like,
is that's all you like? That's all you can think about for them. Yeah. I don't know.
But I mean, in general, I agree with these guys. I really like the Prot Paladin rotation. I can't really think of anything that I would want really removed.
Okay.
Yeah. Although I think seals, the seals are, some of them are kind of worthless at this time. They may need to do a little bit of work on seals to make like the Seal of Righteousness actually worthwhile in certain situations.
I will say that what Treckie, I'm pointing this way because that's where his camera is. My screen. This makes no sense to you guys, but what he said about maybe just tanks getting them, or maybe healers too, I think is a really good idea. It would help a lot with class balance and what classes for DPS to bring to raids. Because right now you want to bring rogues because of smoke bomb, stuff like that. But you're always going to have a tank or two in raid, no matter what. So if you have some kind of tank cooldown ability, 1 per tank, 2 per tank, whatever, the raid will always be kind of even. And you don't have to discriminate against certain DPS classes. I don't know. I think it would help a bit with the...
Yeah, and then it's going to be a big choice for your guild if you want to bring in that extra healer for the extra raid cooldown, if you can afford the DPS and stuff like that. Now it's like, well, let's just bring in a Prot Paladin instead of I don't know, some other DPS, and it's like, well, then you get
Windwalker,
pretty much the same DPS, but you get a extra raid cooldown. So and that's the problem.
Yeah, I remember coming back from vacation and my raid leader was like, "Yeah, we missed your Devo."
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no, it's again like it's a pivotal ability. I'm not like doing it with like doing certain fights with one Devo felt like ugh. Yeah. Well, that's good to hear that you guys don't have anything you just want like gone. You just want Holy Wrath fixed. Make it worthwhile. Fair enough. Okay. Well, anything else on that toward the end here before I jibber jab for a couple minutes?
Go ahead and jibber jab.
All right, let's do this. I'm going to tell you guys real quick about a couple of awesome community websites that are behind the scenes here that we love and that you guys should go check out. But first, because people are curious about how the show works, there's a whole lot of new people here tonight. If you have questions for upcoming episodes, you can go over to FinalBossTV and send us in questions. At the end of each show, we always say what's coming on next week. So in like half an hour-ish from now, you'll know who's coming on next week. And then from that point, you have all week to submit us questions, either on Twitter during the day of the show, during the after show, we can take questions from Twitter, or you can send it to our email. There's a Ask a Boss section right there on the website. Send in those questions. We'll ask them live here on the show for our awesome guests. But in addition to that, you guys should definitely go check out, if you need some more World of Warcraft in your life, manaflask.com. Manaflash.com does tons of different editorials, columns. There is us. They have streams. They have videos, both English and German predominant. And then the videos are down here as well. But they had an interview with Paragons a little while ago. They had a whole bunch of stuff. I think they had the vodka interview. I think this is down here even more. Suni from Method has a little Healing Absorbs Anonymous, like a little blog column here for healers. That was pretty cool. I kind of thumbed through it a little bit there. But Mana Flask has way too many awesome articles and columns for you guys to check out if you do want more awesome World of Warcraft information. You go over there to manaflask.com. And again, I preface the episode by saying this, that Theck over at sacredduty.net helped put together the show. This man eats, sleeps, breathes Ret Paladin. I wonder if like he thinks Ret Paladin is like, he's like, I'm gonna go across the street real quick to buy some, my Hand of Justice is off cooldown. If there's someone in my way, I don't even know. This man has some amazing stuff on Ret Paladin. He's got breakdowns, he's got tanking stats, he's got weak aura strings. Where are they? Oh my goodness, weak aura strings. This huge thread right here, all these different weak aura strings for tons of different classes if you like weak auras. Sacredduty.net, you guys go check this out if you guys need more Prot Paladin information. This is a great resource. And then talking about great resources, if you are a shaman of any denomination, totemspot.com for Ellie, Resto, and Enhancement. Tons of amazing guides, huge forum community over here with some great theory crafters. You can find out about all different types of totems. I was going to say of totems, but that is works of shamans. Really, really awesome. And, oh, did I really say Ret? Did I really say Ret? I am awesome at this. I'm rolling. Yeah, Prot Paladin is all about Sacred Duty. I had to say it at least once or twice. Chat catches up. We're all good to go. We are good to go. But, boom, boom. If you also have missed any episodes of us from the past, all of our VODs go up on YouTube. So it's YouTube, it's Final Boss WoW on YouTube, and all of the links are down below. You can go check all of that out down there. We have, this is our 24th episode. Each episode is usually broken into a main episode and then an after show, which is sort of an unscripted version of just like talking with chat room or answering more questions. So there are hours and hours of us here. Keep going. There's Sko and Roger Brown for the Method World First stuff right there. There's an interview with Ryeth and Spazzo from Midwinter. They keep going. They keep going. There's tons of stuff on here if you guys want to check out a class we've already done, and we do hope to hit every class before Warlords comes out. But if you've missed an episode of a class that we may have already covered, you can go check us out on the YouTubes and get us all right there. But sorry for that slip up. I had one job, I know, and I totally, you know what? I've talked about Sacred Duty on this show so many times. People know what it's about. They just know that I'm kind of dumb. It's okay. All right. But, yeah. So let's move on. We have a huge chunk of notes right here that I hope we can get through in this next half hour. Oh my goodness. And I'll open this up with a question that came in from Rainstorm on US Proudmoore. He's a returning Prot Paladin after a long break. Hasn't tanked since Cataclysm. And all this haste stuff has me confused. When did this happen, and why is haste stacking a good thing? So, how much haste is too much haste to have with your haste? So, gearing endgame protection is all about haste. Why is that, Trekkie?
Well, it's all about active mitigation now in Miss Pannoria, and has been all Miss Pannoria. If it's all about being in control of when you reduce the damage when you mitigate. So haste basically makes you able to choose more. Like, it's gonna give you higher uptime. It's gonna make you able to choose when you use these abilities, and you're gonna be able to use them more each fight. So that's what all tanks are going for right now, like more uptime on the active mitigation rather than just standing there being a meat shield with a lot of HP.
Okay, fair enough. So what haste lowers your GCD on what abilities?
Everything.
Pretty much all of them.
Everything? Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Rotation.
It's the Sanctity of Battle is the ability, and it affects it affects pretty much everything in the rotation for Prot and for Ret. There are some abilities that were left out. Let's see. It's Judgement, Crusader Strike, Hammer of Wrath, baseline, and then Avenger Shield, Consecration, Shield of the Righteous. It's a lot of stuff. I mean, basically, it just affects everything.
Your entire rotation, basically.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, in effect, your entire rotation.
Okay, sounds good. And that just basically means that all your it's mostly a big deal is with all your holy power generators. so you can use them more often to keep up your shield wall, more or less. Shield of the Righteous, your damage mitigation. Okay. Now, is this an interesting gameplay mechanic? Do you like gemming full haste? Is this fun for you guys? What do you think, Sloot?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Look, I was probably one of, if not the first person to do this whole haste thing. Everyone's like, what's this guy doing? He's an idiot. But I just don't think
the base question is, did you guys gear full haste? Because I know you did really early, Sloot. I don't remember when Treckie started gemming full haste.
I think you started in tier 15, didn't you?
Not until
traditional for 14.
Yeah, not until good gear or decent gear 520, 525 item level. Did I start? Okay. So I actually did all of tier 15 progress with stamina gearing, because like you could reach nice haste levels, but they weren't really game breaking, and there was a lot of fights like you had Daruma, you had Horadon, where it was more about the timing than general upkeep for the Shield Righteous. So it wasn't a big difference at that point, but obviously the haste was a very much heavier in terms of damage output.
Okay.
Because there's this tendency when people talk about WoW mechanics to be like, oh, there's this one right answer, and then we go on from there. And that's how the haste discussion starts. Like, oh, all tanks should be gemming, all prots should be gemming haste. But that's really not how it played out through the expansion, because I know different tanks gemmed haste at different times. I remember that Sloot was one of the first, and then I remember, like Treckie said, he did it a little bit later, and I think Absalom did almost...
Still not.
Yeah,
No,
isn't he still not? He's still not gemmed haste. He was stamina for everything, and that's Absalom from Blood Legion.
Yeah.
For people who
Well, the thing is that active mitigation just makes it so much more about play than gearing. If you play it right, you can honestly be gemming spirit, and you will still be doing it, because you have the Shield of Righteous when it matters. If it's not up, then you're going to get squashed. If it's up when you need to, then it doesn't matter what you're gearing, you're still going to survive. That's why haste is so good, in my opinion, and especially at these levels, because, well, if you can control how often you do have that one up, well, then obviously that's what's going to make you survive even better, but it does require you to actually be playing properly instead of just sort of standing in front of the boss.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the beauty of tank gearing in some points. I mean, a lot of times there's math behind it, but a lot of times it's just playstyle choice. And when you feel like you have enough gear to go a certain way, or when you're dying in your raid, or what your healer's healing patterns are like, and it can vary from tank to tank when they choose to gear separate ways.
Yeah, so, like, honestly, that's like one of the most... That's one of the most frustrating things ever. And I get this a lot on my warrior too, and Treckie and I talk a lot, and we both agree it's people come to me and they're like, what, Treckie did this build and he geared like this, like, why aren't you doing this? And then they go to him, they're like, well, Sloot did this, why aren't you doing this? And like, who's right and who's the better tank and where's your hair and all this stuff.
Oh, like, really? Is that
it's just people don't realize that. I guess Blizzard to a certain extent did a decent job. Is there's not just one build now anymore, you know what I mean? With warriors, you could go crit, avoid, and stam. Paladins, haste. You could go mastery. One's, in my opinion, I guess, stronger than the other. Certain fights call for different stats, but there's no fully, absolutely right answer. And unless you do this, you're stupid, So, especially during farm, I mean, people, explore and experiment and whatever all the time. It's like college days. So
it's you did. I was waiting for it. He had to say something.
Yeah.
I had to say something.
But
yeah.
I would say that has to do with why haste is a very interesting game mechanic, because it's not just that haste makes all of your abilities faster, which is fun, lots of fun, but it's also that haste represents a choice. It represents a choice for how you're going to gear and how you're going to play. Do you want to gem haste or do you want to gem stam? I know in my off-spec, because I'm bad at playing my off-spec, it actually took me a while to switch to haste because I felt like I would be a more reliable player being bad and just like switching really quickly to my off-spec for one fight, gem stam, and much safer. And then I started, practicing more in it, and I thought haste was really fun, so I switched to haste. But it represented a choice that I could make, and there wasn't just one right answer. And I should go read Sacred Duty and do what Theck says, which is how a lot of people talk about WoW play and WoW gearing,
yeah.
and that really doesn't give Theck enough credit for what he does, and it doesn't really give the people who do the work.
See, I always say that, and I've said this to Theck too, so don't get mad at me, Theck, because it's true. But people need to use Theck's amazing theory crafting and everything as a guide, because sometimes it just doesn't hold true on some boss fights, and they're like, well, he said haste is 0.8% better, so it must be the best thing in the world on every single boss. People they get so lost in Theck's work that they don't think outside the box with it. They don't use it as a guide, rather they use it as the holy bible of this is the only right way to do it.
Mm-hmm. And all the haste in the world isn't going to help you if you don't have Shield of the Righteous up at the right time. So, I mean, if you're... Yeah. And a lot of time, no one likes to admit that they're playing messily. But, you know, we have you two who are two of the best tanks in the world here. But the fact is that not all of us are going to play as well as the two of you do. And if you're, you know, if your Paladin is your alt or you're a more casual player, then maybe haste isn't the right gearing choice for you. And that's one of those things that people need to think about when they're looking at all of this theory crafting.
If you're a horrible player and don't understand how mechanics work, stamina is the best way, because that makes you able to stay in front of boss and do whatever.
But if it's your alt and you don't think that you're going to time your Shield of the Righteous flawlessly every time the boss does an ability, and you don't want to die and wipe your raid every single time you pull, then maybe you should start with stamina and then switch to haste when you understand the fight a little bit better.
That's the thing. That's what I usually tell people. Stam is like the safe option, you know what I mean? Stam is like the boo-boo option. Like, oh, I missed this. I missed that. It's the like, oh, I screwed up, but I'm not gonna. It's like you have a cushion, you know?
Yeah.
The crit, the mitigation builds are a bit. I don't want to say harder, but they're a bit harder to play because they're less forgiving. They can potentially have a lot more benefit, but if you screw up, you don't have that extra 100 or 200k health to lean back on. So.
Right, and then you get into the situation where you have tons of more casual guilds or paladin tanks and LFR and flex dying all of the time, and then people think paladins are not have terrible survivability, when the fact is paladins don't have terrible survivability. Those people are just gearing wrong. I mean, and so it's there's a trade-off.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Hope that cleared up a whole lot of thoughts for people. I had on here to compare it to the other tanks, but I think you guys already did. So you do have the options, like Sloot really touched on it there too, that you don't have one way to gear Gem and Reforge, something like that, on each tank right now. Really, do you? Does it apply to all 5, or do like Feral Druids or Monks or DKs have to go one certain way to be really strong right now? Do you guys know? Compared to you guys, no.
No.
Warriors have the least choice. No, Paladin. DKs, because you need to go master it. It's not really any alter.
There's options for other classes, but some of them are. It's pretty much accepted that they're just not as good. Every tank class can use something else. You know, DKs can use haste instead, but it's just not as good as mastery.
It's not as good.
I haven't dove too much into DK theory crafting, especially this past year. So I'm sure there's some kind of weird, crazy quasi mastery haste build that's superior right now based on certain gear levels. But generally speaking. Traditionally, at least, that's what
it's more of a stat which you start going for after you've reached a certain level of mastery. So mastery is still your main stat. But there's some DKs going for all out stamina as well, and that works well because their active mitigation doesn't really support. Like their active mitigation is just so fucking weird.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. So let's move us along down this giant list of stuff. I wanted to go into your priority list management and your procs. And so Theck wrote up a nice paragraph of how your rotation goes, and that, of course, goes along the way of probably a damage versus holy power generation abilities, correct? Like, I assume, based on your talents, of course. So, overall, it looks like it's always Crusader Strike, Judge, Filler, Crusader Strike, Filler, Judge, Crusader Strike, Filler, Filler, and then you just kind of repeat from there, right? So, like, is there... you said earlier that you guys like your rotation. Are there any issues you have with it? Do you feel like you're always locked, Trekkie? I think Sloot wants to go turn a light on or something, maybe?
Yeah, that's... I was just... Okay, I'm like, what's going on?
That's fine. Trekkie will carry. It's okay.
Yeah, no, I think Paladin rotation is fine. What he meant there wasn't like getting locked. It's more that you always have something to press. It's not like you're getting empty global cooldowns here and there. And I think that's pretty good. A pretty good way. That means that if you do need to get up your Sacred Shield, if you're running with that, you need to make a choice at some point in your... You have to use a filler. But it's all about holy power. Generate as much as possible. I think there's technically some DPS benefits to stop getting holy power, because like Crusader Strike just doesn't do any damage, but it gives you holy power, which is a third of a Shield of Righteous. So
sure, okay.
It's all about just generating as much as possible, because that's obviously the highest DPS and highest survivability at the same time, pretty much.
Yeah, alrighty, and then I'll go with Sloot on this one. Or Anna, I know because you use it a little differently when you're a Ret Paladin, but is there like a storing it versus just always using it sort of like way to go about it? Do you? Like,
it's totally different as a tank. I mean, for DPS there is an optimal solution, and that the optimal solution is mostly to build up to 5 before you use, but Ret has empty space. So we end up using our holy power before we hit 5 holy power fairly frequently, because when there's an empty space, we use a Templar's Verdict. But in terms of tanking, it works completely differently because you're saving your holy power up to mitigate. So
well,
I'd have
our
to go with
spender
those
isn't
guys.
on the global cooldown either.
Yeah, and their spender isn't on the global cooldown.
Yeah.
Both of them.
Okay. So then what situations would you say would you just get to 3 and use it, or you would want to store to 5 and like wait? Is that only on like a tank transition, like when you're about to taunt into a boss, or what other suggestions?
No,
do you have?
it depends. I mean, it's so situational. Yeah, oftentimes, you know, when you're off tanking and you know you're about to taunt or whatever, you want to have 5 stored up. That's just a smart way to do it. Then there's also scenarios like, you know, like Siegecrafter, for instance, when he enrages because you kill one of the ads on the belt, you probably want to make sure you have chained SOTR during that. Otherwise, you're probably going to die on heroic. So it's just you just have to gauge when there's either a big burst of damage coming or a sustained burst coming. Doesn't make any sense. Sustained damage coming,
Sustained
or
burst.
Sustained
Yeah,
burst.
what are
Sustained
those?
burst.
Or you just every situation is different. Yeah, there are times when you, especially if you're using DP, Divine Purpose, that you just spam away, right? Spam, get procs, keep spamming, and then you're like, oh great, well I'm at 30 seconds of SOTR. So it really just depends. There's never a right answer. It's just you gotta gauge it on the fight, and when is the important time to mitigate? Is it a consistently hard-hitting boss that's just going to sit there socking in the face like Raden was, or is there some kind of burst timing on, you know, for something like Siegecrafter when he enrages?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just using your whole shield red just because of the fact that you have 3 holy power is a bad idea. You should be using your holy power because the fight demands it, or if you have 4 or 5 and you just because sometimes when you have 5 and you use your shield righteous and then divine purpose keeps proccing, it's like you're gonna get, if that chain procs, you're actually wasting holy power as well. But in general, you want to have 5 just sit for that extra 2 holy power if you need to chain them twice in a row. And then you have the fights that do insane amounts of damage. You need to chain them up as much as possible, and you use a cooldown to basically allow you to generate holy power, so that when that cooldown runs out, you have 5 holy power and can chain that right away. So.
Oh, okay.
A lot of times you'll need to chain 2 in a row. I mean, my tanking expertise has been fairly limited this expansion, but I remember that Shah would delay his thrash.
Shaw and
thrash
Raden was
buff
just horrible.
Raden.
Yeah.
Just like we're the only tank class that doesn't have a 6 second, aside from DK.
Mm-hmm,
But we're the only tank class that doesn't have a 6-second active mitigation when we use our resource. It's half time, so you really got to make sure you use it at the right time.
Yeah.
The problem, to explain for those of you who don't play a tank, is that you had to have active mitigation up for something that was on the boss's next swing, but he would delay his swing if he cast certain abilities. At least that was the case on Shah. I didn't tank Raden, so I'm not familiar with Raden, but that was the case on Shah. So he would delay his next swing, and then you'd be like, oh, I guess I got to push this again, and then it made me very thankful that I had Ardent Defender to cover myself.
Sometimes, yeah.
No, that didn't save you on Fatal Strike, though. It killed you through that.
It didn't save you on Fatal Strike, but it would on Shah. It would on Shah.
Oh, on Shah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Shah was a 3 tank fight, so I actually got to tank that one. But that was what really taught me that active mitigation was fun, because you had to like time it, and it was challenging. I liked it.
What about that was a really good thing what you guys said, though. I really think that was a huge helpful tip for Prot Paladins, is there certain times to continuously chain it. But I think it really comes down to it's a divine purpose that makes it reset. Holy power ability is reset, more or less.
No, divine purpose just procs you a free 3 holy power.
Well, yeah. But you can use your Shield of the Righteous again on that. So you never want to just. There are really a few times you just want to just keep spamming that button. You want to like wait for his duration around it because you're just like throwing it away, right?
A DP proc's a bit different, though. I mean, you don't want to. You only have like 6 seconds to use it, so you don't want to wait forever. Very rarely do I wait, because it is just a free proc, right? So if I pooled intelligently and then I get a proc, well, that's great. I'll use that proc for a bit extra, but I'll still have that holy. I'm doing this because this is my weak aura for holy power. But because you still have your 3 holy power pooled, regardless that you used your proc. So you always got to think where your actual resources are.
Okay. And then what about some other maintenance you guys have? I don't know where you guys stand on Eternal Flame versus Sacred Shield right now.
That was really interesting at the start of this tier. I know some people really liked. They really liked the Eternal Flame.
This tier started out the same for everyone. I think everyone went Eternal Flame at the start of the tier because it was so fucking good, and then they nerfed it by 25%.
So good, though.
But it's still really good.
They have the self-healing bonus, is what it was, I think.
Do you guys still use Eternal
Yeah, they
Flame?
have the bonus.
I do, yeah.
Most fights, yeah. I don't use it on Garrosh because overhealing aggro. And
Click off RF, man. Dang.
yeah,
Click it
well,
off.
then you need to
Don't you
get it
have
up
macro
on
for
again,
that?
so it's a global cooldown for that. So it's just made much like you didn't have survivability issues anyway on that fight as a tank. You just have the tank cloak. It's always there to save you, and then you bubble it off. So it's not really that big of a deal. Paragons Eclaxy was a really tough fight. I did use Eternal Flame on that fight, but that was more because we did that when Eternal Flame was still really good. But honestly, like when the boss does more than half your HP in damage, Eternal Flame is not really going to do anything unless it ticks for like 400k, which it did. So
I don't know. It's a bit takes for a lot. It's kind of with the nerf now. It brought them both.
But it also costs the holy power.
Yeah.
So it's like.
But EF's made a lot stronger now because of the 4-piece. You know what I mean? So if you don't use EF, there's not really as much. There's still some minor benefits to using the 4-piece, but I can understand with Treckie. Like I know Treckie sometimes you don't run the 4-piece all the time, right?
No, I don't.
Yeah. So like, yeah, there's no point using the 4-piece if you're gonna go with Sacred Shield. I'm totally for that. But yeah, I don't know. For me, honestly, aside the numbers, there's just a little. I don't know. It's fun to change it up once in a while. So there was an opportunity here to finally branch away from Sacred Shield, just being kind of a just to play with something new.
Yeah, did you enjoy? I mean, that's where I was going with that. I know that Eternal Flame has had its ups and downs in terms of being powerful, but it represents a bit of a change in playstyle. It's a little more complicated to use than just popping Sacred Shield into an empty GCD. Did you enjoy the Eternal Flame playstyle at all?
Yeah. I
found
think it was a lot of fun.
I actually playing with it.
It's fun, yeah.
Yeah, as after they actually started buffing, I wonder. I went back to Throne of Thunder and started wondering I could probably have used this a lot more in this tier, even because Sacred Shield was awesome that at that point as well. But it's like Eternal Flame wasn't that bad. I think most people just ignored it more than we had to. But when the bosses hit you for 20% of your HP or hit, which makes it gonna take ages to even die, then there's not really much point using a Sacred Shield at that point.
Yeah, I remember Theck went into that a bit in his blog on Eternal Flame, that it wasn't that Eternal Flame suddenly became great, because it did become a lot better, but people had not really been paying any attention to it while all of us were using Sacred Shield. We really, Prots as a whole, had not really given Eternal Flame a second thought when we really should have been looking at it. So it's interesting.
Okay. And this leads us right into the next topic, too. We're going to break down your 45, 75, and 90 talents. And your 45 is Eternal Flame, Sacred Shield, and Selfless Healer. So it sounds like right now you guys are pretty much on Eternal Flame hype, even though after the nerf, but it really depends on the set bonus, whereas Sacred Shield still has its uses. So then what the hell is Selfless Healer doing?
Not being used by Prot?
It's there for ret.
Yeah. Is it a ret only, you think?
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't know about Holy, but it's definitely a no-go for tanks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great talent for ret. You run into that trouble when you have a talent tree that's built for 3 different roles. Like, not just 3 different specs, but 3 different roles. I consider it a win if there are 2 out of 3 talents that are viable for that class. And, I mean, Selfless Healer is great for ret, so it's just not good for Prot.
Okay.
It's going to be impossible for them to make every single talent, every single tier balanced ever, unless every single one is one of those ones where it's like for Holy this, for Ret this, for Prot this.
Yeah, that's
just annoying, you know.
That's what it was in the beginning though, and they just trying to tune the numbers, or pretty much was in the beginning, and now they try to tune the numbers a bit more and make at least 2 of them viable for each spec.
Okay. Yeah, it was just in there. That was part of the notes that Theck gave me, was that what the hell's the point of a Selfless Healer for Prot? So it doesn't seem like it really serves a purpose. It really has to come down to where a throughput heal and a dot is better, or a absorb is basically better. Is your point of contention right now with Prot. So
yeah.
But would you both say that you're predominantly using EF now still? Or?
Predominantly, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I use it on 12 out of 14 bosses, I think. So
yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. At this point, everything's so overgeared and easy that I just don't bother changing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I know. And then you just
I don't
just using whatever you like better.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. But
I mean, if it was like cutting edge progression, yeah, I could definitely agree with Treckie. There's definitely some situations where SS would still have its advantages, but
sure.
Yeah,
that's true.
I agree.
Okay. Fair enough. Level 75 talents. We've got Holy Avenger, Divine Purpose, and Sanctified Wrath. So you've got your on-demand burst DPS threat cooldown that lowers your Shield of the Righteous uptime, because you just get it more often. You've got
No, you mean it chains your Shield of the Righteous uptime.
Yeah. You've got lower cooldown on it, so you can get it up more often. Yeah, it's vice versa.
More holy power.
Because the divine purpose has it, you can have up more often, but it's a random proc.
Yep.
And then you've got your cooldown judgment reduction healing benefit thing. So where does your 75 talents come into play? Like, what do you guys feel is the best for you right now? What are your thoughts on Holy Avenger Purpose and Sanctified Wrath, Sloot?
I've always been, and for whoever's seen my Twitch page, I'm a huge fan of DP Purpose. Like, it's one of those things where, especially with a haste build, and I talked to Theck a lot about this too. Technically, mathematically, at least, don't shit on me, Theck. You can have a higher SOTR uptime with DP, especially because it scales better with haste than did Holy Avenger. But obviously, the downside is you don't have the control and that extra little damage boost. So it's kind of a toss-up. It's a bit tougher to play with. But even in late tier 14, early tier 15 days, you could get to the point where with enough haste, unless you had the worst luck in the world, but you had enough gap fillers, you could still connect enough active mitigation and DR CDs to make sure that you never eat a clean hit. You know what I mean? And that's something I had to do. I remember for Darumu, we won tank for our first kill, and you can never let Darumu clean hit a paladin. Like, you would just die. Like, you take your entire health away and be able to heal. So I'm a fan of DP, but Holy Avenger has traditionally always been just that. Make sure that you're never touched for like 45 seconds without AD. Okay. Sanctified. Sanctified
it's like the 45 talent is one of them that's just not very
just
yeah.
We've always wanted it to be good. We've tried it.
You've tried it, and this is
the thing is that it's never gonna outshine Holy Avenger as a cooldown. Holy Avenger will always be a better
absolutely,
cooldown.
Exactly.
So, and it's on a 2 minute instead of a 3 minute. So
and it shares its benefit comes from what I consider to be a DPS cooldown for tanks, right?
Sure.
So then you're torn between, well, okay, knowing vengeance is vengeance. I have this situation where I could do an extra 20% damage, like think like Scorpion on Paragons, whatever. Or do I need to save this for later because now I need to use it defensively? And it just kind of creates this divide in where should I use the talent now and all this kind of stuff. I don't know. Plus, it just makes the rotation all weird. I hate that crap.
It's more about fight mechanic though, because basically Holy Avenger gives you, say, even if they were perfectly matched out, they gave you the same amount of holy power. Holy Avenger would give you all of it as a cooldown at this point, and Divine Purpose would give you the same amount of holy power, but spread out over a period of time instead. So you basically, like Sloot was saying, it's a lot better for maintaining a smooth damage intake, like all the time throughout the whole fight with Divine Purpose. If you're using Holy Avenger, that means that you're gonna take it's a cooldown. You're gonna reduce damage over X amount of time, and then when it's cooling down, basically it's useless. So, whereas Divine Purpose works very well all the time.
Yeah.
So it's more about, like, if you're swapping tanks and you're not tanking half the time, then obviously Holy Avenger is going to be better because you have more effective uptime on your Shield Righteous when you're actually tanking, and when that one is off, the other tank taunts, and then suddenly you actually have 100% Shield Righteous uptime the whole fight when you're actually tanking. Because the uptime when you're not tanking the boss, nothing is hitting you on face. Yeah. It's actually absolutely completely useless to know.
I think the only time I've used Holy Avenger is when I wanted to look cool also, because you get Ashbringer.
Yeah, you get Ashbringer. It's the best looking cooldown ever.
Didn't they have that bug transmog thing where you could transmog Ashbringer? I forgot how that. I should have done that when it was possible.
You pop the cooldown and you transmog something with it up and it locks it or something like that, right?
Yeah, I don't know what it was, but yeah, it was pretty cool. Probably ban-worthy, but cool.
Probably ban-worthy?
Yeah, a little bit. They ban you over the weirdest stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
It's the age-old discussion between do you want sustained or do you want burst,
Yeah.
and a lot of, if you're, like Treckie said, if you're switching tanks back and forth, then maybe sustained isn't the right answer. Then you want that burst so you can use all of that holy power when you're tanking and you have vengeance. But I usually use Holy Avenger, but that's just a personal preference. I like.
But it's a lot better for.
Yeah.
Holy Avenger is a lot better for, like, tanks are not very used to playing that class because it is basically an extra cooldown. It gives you one more cooldown.
Yeah.
And if you're not used to tanking, then that means that when you have that one up, then you're safe for X amount of seconds.
That's why I use it.
Yeah, so
and it also makes nice big numbers.
Well,
yeah,
of course.
So really high burst as well when you have
Yeah, one of the other fights I tanked was Animus, of course, and using Holy Avenger there was always lots of fun.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so is eating orbs and sitting. But
yeah.
So your final tier of talents now, your level 90 talents, is Holy Prism, Light's Hammer, and Executioner's Sentence. So
what?
It's execution sentence, babe. It's not executioner's sentence.
Hey,
what?
hey.
Clearly, I didn't look over these notes before he put them up. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you know, it's all right. So you have a damage and AoE healing cooldown. You have a damage and AoE healing cooldown, and then you have a single target damage versus single target healing long cooldown. And I know Executioner Sentence right off the bat, that's the Ret cooldown, right? We're going through these tiers right now, and one looks like it's for the other specs.
Well, it's not really just for Ret. I mean, it's the single target cooldown, and that's Holy. Holy uses it as well for single target healing, and Ret uses it obviously for single target damage, and as opposed to Light's Hammer, which is your AE cooldown.
Yeah, there's
no, frozen. Go sleep.
Down on the 1 minute cooldown.
Oh, okay. You know, I'm actually really pleased with the level 90 talents, and I have been actually for 2 tiers now. They're all situationally good. There's not one like some of the other tiers where it's just one of them's like, I will never use this, because they're all just situational. You know, ES obviously spike damage, Light's Hammer, group up healing is basically like a mini trank. Think like Megara, you know.
Yeah.
Prism's good for high mobility fights where you need to snap AoE on a few mobs or snap AoE help heal the raid. So I'm very happy with all of them.
Okay.
I use them all this tier.
See, I'm jealous that you guys use Holy Prism, because I could never fit it into my rotation as Ret. That's just the talent that Ret never uses, but Prot does find a use for it.
Well, it's not really that strong for Prot, though. It's just more about when, like, because of the fact that if you do use it on single target, it will heal 5 people, and if you have a lot of Vengeance, that is gonna be pretty huge. Imagine, like, think of like Iron Juggernaut, as people are dropping a bit, and then the burst is just about to come. You hit that heal right before the big burst is like, that's gonna heal. That's gonna help out a lot. That's why honestly, I use that one pretty much all the time. The only fight I use Execution Sentence is for Siegecrafter, because the ad needs to die. But other than that, I pretty much I'd rather take this the AoE heal. I honestly consider Holy Prism more of an AoE heal than anything else, or AoE snap threat for Galacras and Spoils, I guess.
Something like that, yeah. They're both. It's interesting because Holy Prism and Light's Hammer sort of do the same thing, but in a very different way. Whereas Light's Hammer is very constricted to one spot you put it on, and it's got twice as much of a cooldown as Holy Prism. But Holy Prism hits one target and then heals 5, right, off of that one target.
That's right.
So
it's the mobility thing. Prism's just so much more versatile than than Hammer.
Yeah. Okay. So that's basically, it comes down to a fight dependency there. There's no right answer in this tier. You can kind of go basically fight by fight by fight and change this up.
Well, there's a more right and more wrong answer on like you said, on a fight by fight basis.
Sure.
But there's lots of fights where either one can be advantageous, or one is clearly better, and then the next fight, something else is clearly better.
All right.
I just really like Light's Hammer, and it always bummed me out that we didn't use it as much. And the problem is just that there are so few ad fights where you stay in one place for the duration of the hammer. And I think that's true for tanking and also for DPS. Maybe less for tanking, because I know Light's Hammer really shined on Megara or on a raid stack-up situation.
Yeah.
But when I'm DPSing, every time that there are ads, I want to use Light's Hammer, and I usually couldn't, because the ads would never be in the hammer for the entire duration of the hammer.
Yeah.
It's it's like you said, it's for a group up healing situation, really.
It's much easier to use it defensively on the raid.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Well, I put Glyph of Battle Healer in here, but we're going to use that in the after show. So I want to give you guys a little bit of soapbox closing remarks time, if you have anything to complain about, or if you want to don some tips, tricks, hints, suggestions, and nuggets information on your Prot Paladin community. This is your time. So Treckie, I'll kick it over to you first. Anything to complain about, or any insider information that not maybe everyone knows?
Don't tell them.
Don't tell them.
We already know your opinion on giving away secrets, Slooty.
I know.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Something I get a lot about Protection Paladins is honestly that the aspect of timing your Shield Righteous is not something that a lot of people seem to grasp too much, and it comes down to the fact that Shield Righteous is, because it does damage and it shields you or gives you the buff. A lot of people think that, or have when they do easy content, they say Paladins are really easy to be tanking with because you just go through your rotation and you get your damage reduction and stuff like that. But when you have to time it, you have those 3 seconds to try to reduce damage, and then you want to chain another one, or you use a cooldown so that you can build up holy power. And I think that's the fights that people have really big issues with Paladins as a Paladin tank, that they're not chaining all their cooldowns properly, so they're taking those, like Sloot said, clean hits with absolutely nothing up, and that's just gonna either wreck you or that's gonna burst you way too much. And that's really what Prot Paladins come down to a lot more than any other tank at the moment. Being able to use those correctly, that's gonna make you the least spiky as possible.
Because more or less, if you do it properly, you almost have a consistent shield wall up. Yeah, there's obviously some lulls where you're not gonna have it up all the time, but overall,
for physical only, yeah.
For physical, you should be able to keep it up for pretty much the majority of an encounter if you rotation through it right. You can keep up the Shield of the Righteous proc. So.
You can't keep up SOTR the whole encounter, but if you play properly, you should, without any externals from the raid, you should be able to provide yourself with some kind of DR at every single point.
Okay.
And then there's obviously the moments of fight where boss costs something or whatever that gives you a second or two.
Exactly.
Malcork is a perfect example when he jumps in, does a cost. If you're using a Shield Righteous there, you're actually just wasting it. And
you're wasting it,
him to get his actually start before, like the second before it's gonna hit you, you can start using it again. That's gonna save you a second or two here, and then but those seconds here and there, and then you have Divine Purpose to make up for a few more, and then you have suddenly your Divine Protection is ready again, so you have damage reduction for 10 seconds, allowing you to build up a bit of holy power. So yeah, it's using all your abilities all together is so important. And then
especially
obviously
with
like
Divine
tank.
Protection on such a low cooldown.
Yeah.
Fair enough. What about you, Sloot? Soapbox time for you. What do you got?
I mean, it's just kind of like what Treckie said. I mean, there's so many ways to go about it, but I mean, one of the number one things I get a lot of the time is, you know, people struggling with, well, this boss is crushing me and I'm dying and he's hitting me in the face, and it's just these, you know, one of the nice things Treckie mentioned was the whole, you know, people are so eager to hit that SOTR button as soon as you get the 3 holy power. They don't pool. They don't react to the situation around them. So, you know, Malkorok was a good example, or Siegecrafter, you know, when he's turning around and throwing a saw blade, why are you using your active mitigation? It's by the time he turns around, it'll be gone, and then it'll be like, oh, well, too bad, I died. You know, so people, it's these small things that you become aware of over time. And it's like Treckie said, of all the tanks right now, except DKs, of all the tanks right now, there's just, Paladins are, if you can rotate it well, their mitigation's amazing, right? Because it's like you said, Bay, it's basically a shield wall every time. It's easier for other tanks because when I press my SOTR, that's 3 seconds. When a warrior presses their block, that's 6 seconds. So it's easier there's more leeway for other tanks to just kind of chain their stuff together, and, you know, less reaction time needed. Paladins, it's like you got 3 seconds, you know, and that's for me what makes, for instance, like I mentioned earlier, Divine Purpose so fun to play, because you have to react to what's going on. You can't rely on that proc, but if you get it, you're fine, you know what I mean? But if you start running out, you don't have that Holy Avenger to pop, so you always have to react to your situation with procs.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Anna, what about you? Because it's part of your thing. Do you have anything for the community? Do you have any...
No, I mean, I'll just follow up what these guys said.
Sure.
That it's the most important thing I would say is to find a way to track your Shield of the Righteous so that it makes sense. I know watching Paladin streams, it's funny because you see a lot of us track Shield of the Righteous the same way. I think both of these guys have an icon. Don't you both use an icon for Shield of the Righteous that shows the time remaining?
Yeah, I just have like a big circle next to my character.
And that's, you know, that's so important because before MOP, tanks were just used to pushing their buttons like it was a rotation, and they would just use Shield Slam if it was available to deal damage. But the fact that you have to time it to have this buff up, and that you care about when that buff is up, not all of us are going to know that just instinctively based on pushing the button. So it's critically important to put something in your UI that says Shield of the Righteous is active for these seconds, and then you can see the duration of that, and you start to realize the difference between the boss hitting you with mitigation up and the boss hitting you without mitigation up.
And just to add to that, to go even beyond that, I find what has helped me a lot over time to become better is it's not even just seeing the active mitigation, it's afterwards knowing that that's up and then popping something else, somewhere along my UI, so I know. It just visually, I guess I'm very visual at this game. It's like my active mitigation's gone. Okay, DP's up. Hey, you give me pain suppression. Okay, man. So you chain cooldowns, right? Because you don't want that thing where everyone uses all their cooldowns on you.
I need a cooldown. You got like 7.
It's one of my biggest pet peeves. It's like one of the tanks, or like you get hit once, and that's fine. Healers obviously they worry. They see the tank dip to like 20% health. They worry, but it's like you dip to 20% health, and you as the player, I'm like, I got this. And I just look at my screen, and there's like 40 cooldowns on me. Like everyone. Everything, and I'm like, what is going so like of course 10 seconds later I'm like, can somebody PS me please? Oh no, all right,
it's all down. It's all down.
It's like you drop to 20%, someone pops pain suppression or something. It's like my tank cloak hasn't even procced. I'm fine.
Like,
just calm down. Just
don't get me wrong. I totally understand healer mentality. You freak out, right? You don't want the tank to die, but it's just as a tank, you're sitting there and you're like, instead of your keyboard, you're like,
I've got 5 stacks of Bastion. I can put a wog on myself at any time.
But that's why good deep divine purpose plays comes into such so big role, because if you are smooth to heal, healers will not panic that way, and you will not die that easily. You will have those cooldowns for other moments, and you take very much effect of the smart heals going on all everywhere. But if you use it in a bad way, you're gonna take those spikes. And you're just gonna either die easily, or healers are gonna be like jumping up their shares like all the time.
It's always about smooth damage intake. I mean, that's what you aim for. Nobody wants to see a tank's health go.
Yeah. The less whack-a-mole for healers, the better. They have enough to do with that, with melee DPS standing in all the cleaves and the fires and everything else, right? That's
to be honest, in 25 man, it's like tanks don't even exist on the healers meters. We take all the healing from like smart heals. Yeah. Especially with Eternal Flame, because
all the sponge healing. Yeah. Well, alrighty then. It's button time. It's button time. I think we did it, Theck. We almost did it. We
pretty much got through every topic.
We have a little bit to talk about in the after show, and again, if you guys will stick around, the show has 2 parts, and if we have some questions, I know there might be some on Twitter. I don't have the tab up right now, but send them in on Twitter. Tweet us at FinalBossTV. We can get to your questions in the after show. We're going to take a quick little break, but before we get out of here, Slootbag from Midwinter. Thank you for being here again, sir. You can follow him on the twitch.tv.
Pleasure.
Slootbag. All of his social media is right there. Look at the cheese. Thank you, sir. Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you very much. Also, we got Treckie Method again on Twitch TV /just Treckie. You can find him in the both Method and Midwinter have groups on Twitch as well. You can get all of their streams, but that's where all social media is at. Thank you, Treckie.
Thank you so much for having me. It's fun.
Absolutely. And then Anna. Hi, Anna. Anna's on the Twitters. At Anna
on the Twitters, yes.
Yep. Hopefully you kick this cold the next couple of days. Work's going to be a bitch tomorrow.
Fun show. I feel much less sick now than I did 2 hours ago. When you're doing something fun, you always feel better.
Awesome.
Beer.
Yep.
And drinking beer, yes.
And then there's me. I'm Bay TLM over on Twitch. All my social media stuff is there. You'll find me there when I'm not doing the show on Sundays. It's every Sunday at 1 p.m. PST, 4 EST, and 10 CET. And next week, I saw chat room talk about it earlier. We have Leads of Method and Tickle Totem of Pure. We're doing Elemental Shamans. So I can talk a little bit about that, because I did do Elemental like 4 years ago or something. I don't know, once in a blue moon. But Elemental Shamans next week. We will see you guys for that. Have a great day at work tomorrow. Have a great reset. And if you see it... Oh, I'm hitting the wrong buttons. If you see it at the after show, we'll see you there. But have a good one, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Bye!
There you go, Trek.